Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
I want you to think about this for a second. Let's say you're having a bad day. How do you take that and turn that into a positive? Let's say you're in a challenging situation that feels kind of negative. You don't want to stay there. How do you transcend into a positive? We're going to talk about that today. One of many things we're going to center on, and she helps people with that all the time. She is an amazing author, speaker, licensed clinical psychologist, and she's back with us. It is Ann Creekmore. Welcome back, Ann.
Hi, Steve. How are you?
Well, it's great to have you back with us. And life is full of those negative things. They're going to pop up. And we know, obviously, you want to be positive, although I will say some people love to wallow in the negative and be the victim, and that's kind of how they roll. And that's sometimes their identity. But how do we, when you're in those situations, and this is all part of your book, which we're going to get a little bit deeper into in just a moment, but how do you go from that negative, like blah feeling, like, really, I can't believe that just happened, and this is my life, and how you spin it into something that's a little more positive?
Well, as you mentioned in my book, it's called Love Yourself, Love Your Life. I try to help people to change all the different areas of their life to be happy and healthy. So we could start with the self-fulfilling prophecy, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, changing your thoughts to be healthy. And then there's also more client-centered, kind of focusing inward processes that you can do to kind of take a negative feeling, and don't be afraid of a negative feeling, it's just a feeling, and taking it to a positive solution that you feel relaxed. Because we can only change ourselves. So we have to kind of work on ourselves to get to that inner peace, which is really should be ultimately the sense of love, forgiveness, inner peace is what we really want to all get to, and would make the world a perfect place, right? If we could all get there.
Can I just mention one thing? You mentioned
Sure.
that word,
Sure.
inner peace. And
Yes.
yeah, I'm not religious, but went to church as a kid, occasionally, and even in my adult years, and try to a little more regular. You'd always hear the word peace be with you, peace in your life, and I never got it. I never understood it. It's like, what is this peace thing? Until I realized it was missing. and then you get that. I just want peace. I just want just no craziness, just a nice. So I totally get the inner peace, what that means, and that really is. It's really everything when you think about it, right?
Absolutely. Yes. We can get to that place of just love, forgiveness, peace. That's all we're really looking for, and that's what the world needs for everybody. Yeah. Thank you.
How do you find that inner peace? I know we talk about it, it's here, and it's often been said, you are what you eat. Well, it's also you are what you think. That's what's going to take place, whatever's going up here. How do you spin it into those more positive thoughts on a more regular basis?
Right. And before I go into that, I just want to say that you brought up a good point, that we have to get ourselves in a good place in order to be able to have inner peace. I mean, if you haven't slept enough and you're hungry and you're mad about something and then you haven't gotten your exercise, gotten your tension out, your lactic acid out of your muscles, that's a kind of a precursor to not having inner peace. So some of the self-care kinds of things, trying to work on those, and get yourself so you're not cranky from not feeling good physically is a beginning of just the self-care is important. Trying to take an hour or two every day to take care of yourself, mind, body, spirit. And just give yourself that time, set some boundaries, and don't be in toxic relationships that are kind of drawing you away, or toxic things. Just taking that time to just get yourself, mind, body, spirit kind of stable is the first step. Then when you can the most effective, according to the research, type of therapy, psychotherapy, that you can learn. In my book, it's all skill sets. Each chapter has got a different type of therapy, the main ones, and it's even got a handout. So it has like a toolbox, gives you the tools for each one. So you just kind of even, put it on your phone or your fridge or something so you can follow the steps. Like for cognitive behavioral therapy, the self-fulfilling prophecy, I call that chapter 1. is changing your thoughts, because your thoughts are what create your outcomes. They get out pictured in your life. You have a thought, and that thought is what actually causes you to have the feelings. Then those feelings cause you to behave a certain way, and then you behave a certain way and you get a certain outcome. So I can give you an example. Say you have a job performance review and little report you get back about your annual review, and two people get the exact same review. See, the event's the same. It's actually the exact same write-up and the same, couple little criticisms, that kind of thing, just different name on it. And the first person has higher self-esteem, more positive self-talk, looks at this report and goes, those criticisms or needs for improvement, goes, oh, I can do that. I'm smart. I'm capable. And then they feel, they feel pepped up. They're given a little pep talk by themselves. So they feel optimistic, and probably on the job, they're going to do well, because their behavior is going to reflect that they're go-getters, they're motivated, they're going to try to learn these things and even improve in their performance. Now, so then the other person who has lower self-esteem was using negative self-talk, which I'm not putting that down, because we are negative thinkers and we need to work on this. That person looks at the job performance evaluation, just got this person's name on it. Everything else, the event's exactly the same, exact same report, but it has those few criticisms. And the other person, who the negative self-talk, looks at it and goes, I'm a loser. They're going to fire me. They hate me here. I'm a failure. Well, how does that person probably feel emotionally? They feel terrible. So how do they react? They're feeling down on themselves. They react behaviorally by, like, maybe they get an attitude, maybe they get mad, or maybe they just kind of give up. They feel hopeless. They don't think they can do the job, or maybe they try to do it, they get anxious, but they're over anxious. And if you're real scattered, you don't do a good job. So how's that person's job performance? That person doesn't do as well as the first person. So the whole idea is for us to take, our minds are kind of like this glass of muddy water. And we want to take a picture of clear water and just keep pouring it into the glass of muddy water, because then all the mud's going to just keep flowing out. Eventually, you keep pouring that clear, pure water, you're going to wind up with a glass of clear, pure water. And that's what we want our minds to be, to get to that, level of peace within ourselves, so that it's not the event, we realize, we start to take and say to ourselves, be a friend to ourselves. If we wouldn't say that something to a family member or a friend or something, we're not allowed to say it to ourselves. One therapist said people should wear a little rubber band, don't hurt yourself, but ping yourself when you start saying negative things to yourself to get your attention, and then put in the opposite. Because the person could, instead of saying, I'm a failure, they hate me, they're going to fire me, could be saying, wait a minute, this is a good report. I got a couple things. I'm new on this job. I can learn these things. I'm smart. I'm capable. And that same person could feel motivated and do well on the job just from changing their thought pattern. So the first step is to be aware and to notice your self-limiting beliefs, what you're saying to yourself that's negative, and then thought stopping that, and then putting in the positive instead of giving yourself a positive affirmation, like you would probably say to your child or your family member or friend, and what you would say that would encourage them. And that will make a big change in how you're feeling and your sense of inner peace and control of your life.
So many thoughts here, because the person you described about the job evaluation is my very, very close friend. And she has lots of anxiety. Normally took a job about 3 months ago and not loving the job. The training wasn't great. She explained how they did everything, and it seems reasonable. They could have done a better job in terms of training. So she doesn't feel 100% prepared. Right. But they would say, all right, we're having an evaluation coming up on Monday. And she would get all stressed out and like, oh, I'm like, I'm not meeting the quotas. I'm not doing the right thing here. I just hate this job, blah, 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 blah. Every time she got an evaluation, they would actually say to her, you're ahead. You're doing better than, most people in with the amount of experience that you have so far. And I tell her, just do your
Amazing.
job. Just do your job. You're fine. I know you don't love the job. There will be others. This is not the last one. Start looking for one now. But all the things that she worried about didn't even come true. It's
Exactly.
they were happy with her, but it's the thoughts that we put in our head. And maybe that comes from her childhood. Maybe she was told at some point or internalized that she's not good enough.
Exactly. There, besides my book, there's a really cute little paperback called How to Be Your Own Best Friend. I recommend that to people that do tend to have that tendency to put themselves down. It's a nice little read. And then, of course, my book, Love Yourself, Love Your Life, which is in my maiden name, A.P. Filosa. And so I just want to mention that, because otherwise people won't be able to find it by the other practice name. But maybe you could, mention those two books to her, because they would really help. And most therapists should be practicing the cognitive behavioral therapy. That's our most common thing. And so going to therapy is always good. That self-discovery, like you mentioned, well, what is the origin of the negative beliefs? It's from some things that we've heard in our childhood, and it's kind of like we're playing these tapes back over our head. Things are happening in our life, but at the same time we've got these fantasy camp tapes going on that are just triggering the old pain, and it's getting in the way of our being in the present moment. And so that's another whole thing, and on triggers and healing those emotional wounds. That the first step, of course, like you're saying, is to become aware that you've got these limiting beliefs and try to catch them, and then thought stop them and put the positive instead. And then after you do that for a while, it will heal. You might have to do it 300 times a day at first. You'll find yourself catching it, and then maybe in a week or so it's 50 times, and then after that only 15. You just got to keep doing it to get the thoughts clear, like that clear water.
Is it reasonable to do this? This is what I do, or try to think of positive things to look forward to. I always have something, like, not every day is going to be fantastic. So it's like, all right. Oh, well, I'm going to be doing that later. That's going to be fun. Or this weekend, I got that coming up. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. That's something that I can look forward to. Is it reasonable in terms of trying to, form positive habits to do things like that?
Absolutely. I mean, it's always good, to have hope. That keeps us going. And the visioning of things too. I mean, our thoughts are prayers in a sense, you know what I mean? What we think, we're going to outpicture in our life. So if we're thinking positively, we're going to be creating the positive. One other thing is to just be grateful at the moment. Something I say, if a person feels depressed, they found with cognitive behavioral therapy, they've done research where they have found that people, when they start doing the positive self-talk, they increase their own serotonin just as well as an antidepressant. And I'm not saying don't take an antidepressant, but if you need it, your doctor said you need this. But I'm saying, you can certainly still improve it, because serotonin is that positive mood neurotransmitter that gives us a sense of peace and well-being. And if you can do that on your own by just saying positive things to yourself, and they have found that your serotonin actually is elevated as well, then that's definitely a great thing to do. The only thing I would add is to bring it into the present, so that to be grateful, how to say, when you start to feel like down, things are not as up, the mood is not as up as you would like to feel, then say in the present 10 things that maybe you're grateful for right then, 10 things you like. I mean, it could be anything. It could be, hey, it's really a sunny day and it's not too hot, but it's beautiful out. I mean, there you go. You got one, right there. I mean, whatever you feel happy or grateful about in your life, if you could just add and try to count to 10, you'll find that you do feel better after you've said those things, that you've actually elevated your positive mood neurotransmitter, the serotonin in your brain. And you will be, so just even bring it into the present, as well as thinking of the future things. And you can add the future to your list of present, as I'm going here this weekend. But look at just even small things, whatever is happening, and it will help.
How long does it and take you to change into a more positive ritual habit? I hear it's a lot of things takes, if you're going to change a habit, it takes at least 30 days, sometimes 12 weeks. What's a reasonable thought there to start changing those habits?
Well, and like I mentioned, that it might be the first week you're having to do this all the time, and it'll improve over time. I've heard similar things to you, like the 21 day, as that, in 21 days, they say medications, might be toward the end of a month, the 30 days. It's just, it may take that, that amount of time for you to really start feeling the benefits and being stable more in your habit. And so, but just if you keep up with it, it'll start working immediately. It could be a few days and you're starting to feel better. And then, you keep it up and you just, but it's something you have to keep up. You can't just, after a while change back to the old. You just got to get the habit and keep going with it.
100%. And where I started with that is those things that pop up that just annoy you. Like you're driving down the street, somebody cuts you off in traffic. What do you first do? You're like, really, and you get mad, angry, frustrated. What's that going to do? What's the win? What's the, flipping off the other driver? You're never going to see him again. What's the point? So I've tried to reframe those moments, and that's just one example, to yes, for a moment, for a split second, you're going to be like, and then, you know what? Maybe they're having a bad day. Maybe they just got some bad news on the phone. Maybe they're working 5 jobs to support their family. They have no sleep, and they didn't mean to make that turn in front of my vehicle. Nobody got hurt. It's all good. Good luck to you. God bless. And then you move on. But it takes time.
Right. Absolutely. You should be a therapist. That is good. That's called like reframing, and
listen, I'm not proficient at it. Trust me. I'm like there are times where that split second still continues to be maybe 3 seconds where you're like, and it's like, let it go. Whereby previously it could have been 10 minutes, and then you're on the phone with somebody. Can you believe the drive?
Right.
Waste of time.
Right. Well, though you brought up several really good points. One was just the anger is kind of like you've heard the saying, anger is like taking a poison pill and expecting somebody else to die. Really, that person in the other car doesn't know anything about what you're feeling or anything. It didn't have any impact. All it did was ruin your good mood. All it did was make you feel bad. So it's like, what's the point? Like you said, sometimes anger is a good thing. It gives you a little bit of energy to maybe do something if you needed to do something. If you saw a car moving in and you're mad and you moved out quickly and you took care of yourself, that would be energy that you had from it. But it's generally, it's only a clue that we need to do something for our emotional survival, kind of like hunger is a clue. We need to do something for our physical well-being. We need to eat. And anger, we need to go below. And usually we need to ask ourselves questions like, well, what's below that? Am I feeling sad about something? Or am I feeling scared or anxious about something? And then that's where you kind of, break it down to figure out, well, what is it I need? What will make me feel better? What's a good solution? In that case, luckily everything's okay, and you were alert and nothing happened when somebody did something, and that's maybe all you needed to do. But a lot of times it could even be like a trigger, something, like you might hang on to it because instead of it, if you get to the real feelings underneath, like, a feeling like you could say if you're angry, like, well, people just don't care, and about what's happening with me or whatever. That'd be like a sad feeling. And then you could take it to a deeper level. It's just say, like, well, when did I feel this way, like growing up or in a relationship? Well, yeah, like you say, my dad, I did feel like a lot of times he'd just come in and not pay, and didn't even notice I'm there. I could have got hit or whatever. And so that may be a wound to heal. So you can use it for even more self-discovery, but just staying at the angry and the frustrated, doesn't do anything but make you feel bad, right?
I
So
love what you said, that it can be a motivator, or it can be, it can be a positive, like you said. Somebody cuts you off in traffic. This time you need to be evasive. And for that moment, that anger caused you to move your car, but then you have to let it go.
Right.
And I think it's also the same thing. Anxiety gets a bad rap many times.
Exactly. But it's alert. You're a little alert that way.
Right. And the anxiety can fuel you. Like, for example, let's say you've got a big presentation coming up. Not many of us like to speak in front of a group. And let's say you have anxiety because of it. So now you're like, you're on your guard. You want to make sure it's perfect. You're a little worried about it. If you didn't have that anxiety, you'd be flat. You'd be like, all right, I guess I'll go do it. Yeah, great. All right. You're not going to have that extra, I guess, thrust of energy. Where I'm going here is you have to mitigate the anxiety after it, or manage it. Same thing with the negativity. Manage the negativity so that you start being more positive.
Exactly. Exactly. You want to stay generally at a positive mood. Do what you do to take care of your health, and your sleep, and your mind, and your thoughts and your feelings, and then try to stay there. But feelings are okay. They're just feelings. They're going to pass, and they do give you information to help you. So it's good to be, to say, right. Hey, I feel a little anxious. I should get this report done, nothing wrong feeling motivated, and turn into a positive. Hey, I get it out of the way, then I can go do this other thing,
Let's talk about your book. We have a few minutes left here. Love Yourself, Love Your Life. And it's been always said the number one thing we should be doing is loving ourselves. And until you figure that out, you're probably not going to figure out life. And that's part of what your book is really about, right, Ann?
Correct. And I apologize. Could you say that one more time?
We're talking about some of the principles in your book, but I wanted to talk more about your book. Yeah, exactly. In the moments we have left, what are some of the other things that we can learn from your book?
Well, it really is a summary of all the main areas of a person's life that you can love yourself, love your life in, and how to do it. It's a toolbox for each of those. Like, I just gave we talked today about how you change your thoughts to be positive thoughts, so that you can have a positive feeling and positive behaviors and outcomes. It also focuses on relationships, like how to create healthy relationships, how to communicate, how to speak your truth in healthy ways and get win-win negotiations or solutions together. It even goes into some of the darker things of like, well, how do you find out if you've got some sort of problem, not just a problem in living, but like a mental condition, like a bipolar or, a complex PTSD or whatever. And how do you know that? What kind of help do you get? Or say you're involved with someone like that, or you see your child is having tendencies, it goes into just how to heal the negative as well, conditions, as well as just change. But that would help you love your life. I mean, if you find out, for example, that you have like a bipolar disorder depression versus a unipolar one, it's not just a flat depression, it's kind of an up and down moody one. Well, that's a whole different medication you take, and it's one little medication versus that little medication will make all the difference in the world. So it kind of goes into everything, how to help people be happy in all different areas of their lives. So to love yourself, love your life.
It sounds like the secret of life.
It really does. I hope I can help.
And you help a lot of people as a licensed clinical psychologist. The book is one thing. There's also your practice. You can do things virtually. We're just about out of time, and I would love next time we get together to dive deeper into some of the other chapters in your book.
Absolutely.
If somebody wants to work with you and need that extra help, book is great, but need that extra help where there's accountability with a psychologist, somebody to coach them along. How do they find you, and how does the whole process start?
Well, my practice, I practice in Virginia. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist in Virginia. And my email for that would be, it's Psychologists with a plural, because I have my kind of on-call backup person on there as well. Psychologists in Virginia, all spelled out. .com, so they could look online there. I'm starting up a new email, and I used to have a nonprofit for several years. I'm not doing it now because after the pandemic, I had like 50 people plus 55 a week, and I just didn't run the nonprofit. But I had one, and it was called the Love Your Life Healing Center before, and so I have an email now, Dr. Ann with an E, Love Your Life Healing Center at Outlook. So people could email me there if they would like to, just, ask me more about the book or more about, how I could help them. So I'm available.
It took me my life to figure this out. So, I'm glad we're sharing it with others, that maybe we can fast track this in terms of these principles in the book, because this is where you start a healthy, positive life. And even the things that we talked about in the beginning, I had a visual of, you have a seed in the ground. That's us. What do you have to give it? You have to give it water, potentially fertilizer, sunlight, etc. The healthy balance in the beginning, proper sleep, proper nutrition, better relationships that don't bring you down. If you have all of those, you can start working toward that positive mindset. But to your point, if you don't have some of those things in place, the flower's not going to grow well. It'll sprout, it'll be okay, but it's not going to flourish. But again, all of that's in the book. Love yourself, love your life. And always great talking with you. I really appreciate all the insight.
Appreciate your insights. And it was a great analogy there. Thank you for
things pop in my head. If they make sense, I share them.
Perfect.
And I look forward next time we get together. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Steve. Take care.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.